The hum of the crowd before a major event is a unique sound, a symphony of anticipation and restless energy. On this particular night, the atmosphere in the arena was exactly that, charged, yet familiar. It was a typical Tuesday night for WWE, promising its usual blend of high-flying maneuvers, dramatic rivalries, and the raw, unfiltered emotion that only live sports entertainment can deliver. The card was solid, featuring a few established stars and some up-and-comers vying for their moment in the spotlight. Fans settled into their seats, clutching their foam fingers and popcorn, ready for an evening of predictable thrills. The announcers, seasoned veterans with voices that could soothe or ignite, ran through the night's lineup, their words painting a picture of what was to come. There was no hint, no whisper, no stray flicker on the massive jumbotron that anything out of the ordinary was about to unfold. It was, by all accounts, just another night in the larger-than-life world of professional wrestling. The lights dimmed, spotlights cut through the haze, and the opening pyro exploded, momentarily blinding the audience in a brilliant flash of color and sound. The first match was about to begin, and the crowd collectively held its breath, ready to cheer, to boo, to lose themselves in the spectacle. They had no idea that history was about to be made, not by a seasoned champion, but by someone entirely unexpected. Then, it happened. The arena's carefully orchestrated sequence of events faltered. The music that was supposed to herald the arrival of the scheduled competitor never played. Instead, a deep, resonant gong echoed through the stadium, a sound both ancient and unsettling. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, quickly followed by a low murmur of confusion. The announcers, usually so composed, exchanged bewildered glances, their voices momentarily silenced. From behind the curtain, a solitary figure emerged. She was tall, slender, yet possessed an undeniable aura of quiet power. Dressed in a sleek, obsidian-black GI, a stark contrast to the usual vibrant wrestling attire, she moved with an almost ethereal grace. Her long, dark hair was pulled back in a severe ponytail, revealing sharp, intelligent eyes that scanned the roaring Colosseum with an unnerving calm. It was in her precise, deliberate steps, the subtle shift of her shoulders, the way she held herself, that the familiar shadow of a legendary name began to dawn on a few discerning fans. Whispers started, hesitant at first, then growing louder, like a brush fire spreading through dry grass. "Is that? No way!" The camera zoomed in, and the truth became undeniable. Seagal's daughter. The WWE Universe exploded. A wave of sound, a deafening roar of disbelief, excitement, and sheer bewilderment crashed over the arena. Backstage, the entire roster, from the newest recruits to the most grizzled veterans, stood frozen, their eyes glued to the monitors, jaws slack. What was happening? She stood in the center of the ring, a stark silhouette against the blinding spotlights, and simply waited. No taunts, no grandstanding, no flexing of muscles, just an unnerving stillness that commanded attention more effectively than any elaborate entrance could have. The roar of the crowd, though still immense, began to morph, shifting from pure shock to a more curious, almost reverent hum. There was an unspoken challenge in her silence, an implicit question hanging in the electrified air. Who dares step forward? Her presence was a living anachronism in the theatrical world of WWE. She carried none of the typical wrestler's bravado, none of the practiced showmanship. Instead, she exuded a focused intensity and a quiet confidence that spoke of years of disciplined training, not in the squared circle, but in a different, more ancient arena. Her father's legacy, a lifetime dedicated to the martial arts, seemed to emanate from her, a palpable energy that made the air crackle. Fans who had initially been skeptical, expecting a publicity stunt, now found themselves leaning forward, utterly captivated. They felt it, that undeniable sensation of being on the precipice of something truly unique. This wasn't just a new face. It was an entirely different paradigm. The announcers, having regained some semblance of composure, spoke in hushed, awestruck tones, trying to piece together the unprecedented moment. The mystery deepened with every passing second of her unwavering gaze, making the audience wonder what hidden depths lay beneath that calm exterior. Backstage, the reaction was a potent cocktail of confusion, resentment, and grudging respect. Seasoned wrestlers, who had dedicated their lives to mastering the intricate dance of sports entertainment, watched with a mixture of awe and simmering indignation. Who was she to just walk in? What did she think this was? The unwritten rules of the locker room, the years of paying dues, the brutal physical toll, all seemed to be dismissed by her mere presence. Champions whispered amongst themselves, their bravado momentarily forgotten. A few scoffed, dismissing it as a cheap trick, a desperate ratings grab. But even their dismissiveness held a tremor of uncertainty. They couldn't deny the palpable energy she commanded, the immediate shift in the arena's atmosphere. Her aura was undeniable, a raw, untamed force that felt distinctly different from anything they had ever encountered. Some of the younger, more impressionable talent, however, watched with wide-eyed wonder. To them, she wasn't just Steven Seagal's daughter. She was a living embodiment of an entirely different fighting philosophy, a bridge between two worlds. The established pecking order of the WWE Universe suddenly felt precarious. Veterans who had confidently predicted every twist and turn found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about their craft. This wasn't just about a new contender. It was about the very fabric of their carefully constructed reality being subtly yet irrevocably altered. The suspense was almost unbearable. Who would be brave or perhaps foolish enough to answer her silent challenge? The answer came in the form of one of WWE's most respected, if somewhat traditional, grapplers, a veteran known for his technical prowess and stoic demeanor. He wasn't a powerhouse, but a strategist, a master of holds and submissions, someone who understood the nuances of the ring. As he made his entrance, the crowd roared its approval, a mixture of support for him and insatiable curiosity about her. He entered the ring, circling her cautiously, his eyes narrowed, searching for any tell, any weakness. She remained unmoving, her expression unreadable. The referee, clearly flustered by the unprecedented situation, tried to establish some semblance of order, but the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The bell rang, a sharp, metallic sound that seemed to slice through the electrified silence. The veteran moved first, a practiced feint, followed by a swift lunge, aiming for a quick takedown. But she moved with a fluidity that seemed almost supernatural. She didn't dodge. She flowed around his attack, her movements economical, precise, like water around a stone. There was no wasted motion, no theatricality. It was pure, unadulterated martial art, brought into the raw, brawling world of professional wrestling. The crowd gasped as she effortlessly countered his every move, not with brute force, but with leverage, timing, and an almost preternatural understanding of balance. What followed wasn't a typical wrestling match. It was a masterclass in an entirely different form of combat. She didn't perform flashy moves or execute elaborate sequences. Instead, she utilized subtle shifts in weight, unexpected joint manipulations, and pressure points that left her opponent bewildered and increasingly frustrated. The veteran, accustomed to the familiar rhythms of the squared circle, found himself constantly off balance, his carefully rehearsed maneuvers rendered ineffective by her uncanny ability to anticipate and deflect. There was no slamming, no high-flying acrobatics. Every movement she made was purposeful, designed to disrupt, to control, to incapacitate. It was less a display of aggression and more a demonstration of absolute control. The announcers, at first struggling for words, began to find a new vocabulary to describe what they were witnessing. They spoke of inner strength, mind-body connection, and unseen energy. The crowd, initially expecting a spectacle of power, was instead treated to a mesmerizing display of finesse and psychological warfare. They were witnessing a conversation between two different worlds, a clash of philosophies where tradition met an unexpected, almost mystical, form of combat. With a sudden, almost imperceptible twist of the wrist, she transitioned from a seemingly innocuous hold into a submission that left the veteran tapping out in agony, his face contorted in a mix of pain and profound disbelief. The match was over as quickly and unexpectedly as it had begun. The arena erupted once more, but this time, the roar was different. It was a sound of exhilaration mixed with utter astonishment. Fans jumped to their feet, their faces a mixture of elation and bewilderment. They had come for entertainment, for drama, but what they had witnessed transcended mere spectacle. It was a moment that would be replayed countless times, debated endlessly, and etched into the annals of WWE history. Social media exploded. Hashtags like Seagal daughter, WWE shock, and New Era immediately trended worldwide. Fans, both casual and hardcore, flooded every platform with their reactions. Theories, analyses, sheer declarations of awe. Memes were born within minutes, capturing the essence of the jaw-dropping surprise. Beyond the immediate shock, there was an underlying current of excitement, a sense that something truly significant had just transpired. For years, some segments of the WWE audience had longed for something fresh, something that broke the mold. And here she was, an unexpected harbinger of change, delivered in the most dramatic way imaginable. Her unconventional style, her quiet power, and her undeniable connection to a legendary martial arts lineage had struck a chord. She wasn't just a wrestler, she was a phenomenon, a living embodiment of the unexpected. The buzz around her was electric, promising a future for WWE that suddenly felt vibrant, unpredictable, and utterly captivating. Backstage, the aftermath was a powder keg. The victory, so swift and decisive, had sent shockwaves through the locker room. The initial disbelief had given way to a volatile mix of anger, envy, and a grudging respect that many were unwilling to admit. Veterans felt their territory encroached upon, their years of dedication seemingly overshadowed by a single audacious debut. Whispers turned into heated arguments as different factions debated the implications of what they had just seen. Was this the future? Were the old ways obsolete? Some argued it was a disrespectful stunt, an insult to the art of professional wrestling. Others, particularly those with a more open mind, saw the potential for something revolutionary, a chance to evolve the sport. The sense of camaraderie, usually so strong, was fractured, replaced by an uneasy tension. Everyone understood that her arrival wasn't just about one match, it was about the entire ecosystem of the WWE. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone felt it. Producers and management were in a flurry, their initial shock giving way to frantic discussions about how to capitalize on this unprecedented moment. The carefully laid plans for future storylines suddenly felt flimsy, irrelevant. A new narrative had just written itself, and its author was the quiet, enigmatic daughter of a martial arts legend. The landscape of WWE had been irrevocably altered, and no one knew what would come next. In the days and weeks that followed, the media circus surrounding her was unprecedented. Every major news outlet, every sports show, every podcast was talking about her. Interviews were clamored for, documentaries proposed, and her face graced the covers of magazines. Yet, through it all, she remained largely elusive, speaking only when absolutely necessary, her answers concise and thoughtful, devoid of the usual wrestling bravado. It became clear that her motivation was not fame or adoration, but something deeper, something tied to her own personal journey and the formidable legacy of her father. The name Steven Seagal's daughter was a double-edged sword. It opened doors, guaranteeing instant recognition. But it also placed an immense, almost suffocating weight of expectation on her shoulders. Every move she made, every word she uttered, was scrutinized through the lens of her father's formidable reputation. Was she merely riding on his coattails? Or was she forging her own path, honoring his teachings in a completely unique way? This pressure, unseen by the casual viewer, was a constant companion. It wasn't about being the best wrestler. It was about proving herself worthy of the name, about demonstrating that her presence was earned, not merely inherited. She carried not just her own ambitions, but the quiet, profound weight of a martial arts lineage that spanned generations, a legacy she was determined to uphold on her own terms in the most unexpected of arenas. As the initial frenzy began to subside, a more profound narrative started to emerge, one that went far beyond the spectacle of her debut. Her presence in the WWE was not, as many initially believed, a bid for personal stardom or a cynical publicity stunt. It was, in fact, a deeply personal quest to bridge worlds. Her father, a man steeped in the traditions of martial arts, had always preached about the importance of respect, discipline, and the true spirit of combat. Yet, the wider world often viewed professional wrestling as mere entertainment, a choreographed performance. Her true mission, slowly revealed through subtle actions and rare, poignant interviews, was to elevate the perception of combat sports, to inject a genuine martial spirit into the theatricality, to show that athleticism and artistry could coexist with raw, disciplined skill. She wasn't there to conquer, she was there to teach, to inspire, to subtly shift the paradigm. The shock of her debut wasn't just about her presence, it was about the jolt it sent through an industry, forcing it to confront its own definitions of legitimacy and skill. The twist was not a dramatic reveal of a secret identity or a hidden agenda. The twist was the quiet, transformative power of her intent. She wasn't seeking a championship belt, she was aiming for something far greater, to redefine what it meant to be a combatant, to honor her lineage, and in doing so to leave an indelible mark on the world of sports entertainment, reminding everyone that true strength often lies not in the loudest roar, but in the quietest, most disciplined step. Her legacy wouldn't just be a viral moment, it would be a revolution of spirit.